Grace, I can't do this anymore. I need space. I'm leaving.
How could he do this to me? To us, after everything we've been through? I won't let this break me. I need to find out the truth. The alarm hasn't gone off yet, but I'm awake, listening to Wyatt's soft snores. His messy black hair, slightly tanned skin, and toned physique make him look like a big kid when he's asleep. I can't help but smile as I watch him. "Wyatt, it's time to wake up," I say gently, shaking his shoulder. He rubs his eyes, sitting up slowly. "Morning, Grace. You're up early again, huh?" His voice is low and sweet, a morning trait I love. "Yeah, big meeting today. Got to get ready," I reply, already out of bed and heading to the bathroom. I look at my reflection in the mirror. My long brown hair is a bit messy, and there are faint dark circles under my eyes from working late. But my firm skin and bright green eyes still sparkle with life. I shower quickly, going over my schedule for the day. Marketing strategy meeting at 9 o'clock, client meeting after lunch, team performance evaluations in the afternoon. It's going to be busy. When I return to the bedroom, Wyatt is still in bed, scrolling through his smartphone. "Wyatt, you're going to be late," I remind him. He jumps up, rushing to the bathroom. "Oh, sorry. I'll get ready right away." I smile watching him go. Wyatt is brilliant and hardworking, but mornings aren't his thing. I open the closet and choose my outfit for the day. A white blouse and a navy skirt suit. Simple, yet elegant. I pair it with black pumps and check my appearance one last time. "Perfect," I murmur to myself, convincing myself I look the part. After finishing my makeup, I head to the kitchen. The cityscape of San Francisco sparkles beautifully in the morning sun. The skyscrapers and the Golden Gate Bridge always make my heart skip a beat. I turn on the coffee maker and start preparing breakfast. By the time Wyatt comes out of the bathroom, breakfast is ready. "Wow, thanks as always." "Your breakfast is the best, Grace," Wyatt says, sitting down at the table. He's dressed in a white shirt and a navy suit, looking refreshed. "Of course, breakfast is the most important meal of the day," I reply, sitting down and taking a sip of coffee. The aroma and flavor wake me up instantly. "What time will you be home today?" Wyatt asks. "Around 7 o'clock, I think." "Lots of meetings today," I say. "Okay, then I'll make dinner," he offers. "Thanks, I appreciate it," I respond, feeling grateful for his support. We finish breakfast, confirming each other's schedules. These casual exchanges are the foundation of our lives. As I finish the dishes, Wyatt hugs me from behind. "Grace, have a good day at work," he says softly. I turn around and give him a light kiss. "You too. See you later." We leave the house, going our separate ways. As I get into the elevator, I think to myself, our lives have been good these past 5 years, but something is missing. I arrive at the underground parking lot and get into my red Mini Cooper. Starting the engine, I turn on the radio. The morning news comes on, and I check the traffic information before heading to the office. The morning traffic in San Francisco is congested as expected. While waiting at a red light, I glance at the car next to me. A cute little girl is talking to a woman who looks like her mother. Seeing that scene, I feel a pang in my chest. Yes, a child. That's what's missing in our lives. About 2 years after we got married, we started thinking seriously about having children, but I couldn't get pregnant. When we decided to get tested, I was afraid something was wrong with me. I wondered if I had missed my chance because I prioritized my career. Such anxieties crossed my mind. However, the test results were unexpected. The problem wasn't with me. It was with Wyatt. The doctor told us his sperm count was extremely low, and the chances of getting pregnant were slim. That night, we talked for a long time. Grace, I'm so sorry. I can't give you a child, Wyatt said, his voice trembling. Why? It's not your fault. This is our problem, I replied, squeezing his hand. But you wanted to have children, didn't you? He asked. Yes, I did. But our life together is important too. We can be happy even without children, I said. My words half true, half bravado. I didn't want to ruin our life together or hurt him. Wyatt refused treatment, saying he didn't want to go against nature. I accepted his decision. Since then, we've avoided talking about children. I arrive at the office and park my car. Taking a deep breath, I prepare to act like a professional. The elevator stops on the 27th floor, and the doors open. The usual bustle envelopes me. Good morning, Grace. Emily, a young marketing assistant, greets me with a smile. She's 22, fresh out of college, and I'm her direct supervisor. Good morning, Emily. Are the materials for today's meeting ready? I ask. Yes, it took me until late last night. But I've got everything together, she replies enthusiastically. Good work. You did great, I say, smiling at her enthusiasm. It reminds me of my younger days when I was passionate about work. I go to my desk and start up my computer. As I check my email, John, the deputy manager of the marketing department, approaches me. Hey, Grace, I'm leaving today's strategy meeting to you. I'm looking forward to your ideas for the new campaign, he says. Thank you, John. I'll do my best, I reply, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. Before heading to the meeting room, I stop by the restroom. I fix my hair in the mirror and reapply my lipstick. Okay, you can do this, I tell myself, taking a deep breath. When I enter the meeting room, the executives are already gathered. I take a deep breath and begin my presentation. Good morning, everyone. Today, I'd like to discuss the marketing strategy for our new cosmetics brand, I say, pointing to the materials projected on the screen. I continue my explanation enthusiastically. The meeting lasts nearly 2 hours, but in the end, I get everyone's approval. That was a great presentation, Grace, John says to me after the meeting. Thank you. It's the result of everyone's hard work on the team, I reply modestly, but I feel a sense of joy inside. During lunch, I'm eating in the employee cafeteria with my colleague Lisa. She is 2 years older than me and a working mother with 2 children. Grace, how are things going lately? Are you thinking about having kids? Lisa asks, catching me off guard. Well, I'm focusing on my work right now, I say, trying to change the subject. I see. But Grace, work is important. But the joy of having a family is also wonderful, especially when you have kids. It changes your life, Lisa says, her words filling me with mixed emotions. Thank you, Lisa. But it's not the right time for me yet, I reply quickly, bringing up work to change the subject. The afternoon client meeting also ends successfully. By the time I get back to the office, it's getting dark outside. I sit down at my desk and start organizing my work for the day. My cell phone rings. It's Wyatt. Hello, Grace. What time will you be home today? He asks. I'm sorry, Wyatt. I still have some work to do. It'll be around 8 o'clock. I reply, feeling a little guilty. Okay, I'll keep dinner warm. Thanks, he says. I'm really sorry, I say, hanging up the phone. I feel a pang of guilt. Wyatt never complains and is always understanding, but I wonder if this is really okay. It's past 8:30 when I finally finish the rest of my work and leave the office. On the way to the parking lot, I hear the hustle and bustle of the city. Laughter spilling out from restaurants and bars, car horns, the music of street performers. The energy of the city eases my tiredness a little. I get into my car and head home, listening to the calm music playing on the radio. I reflect on my day. I had achieved success at work, but on a personal level, something feels missing. When I get home, the light in the living room is on. I open the door, and Wyatt is watching TV on the sofa. I'm home, I say. Welcome home, Grace. You must be tired, Wyatt says, standing up and hugging me. In his arms, I feel the fatigue of the day melt away. I'm sorry I'm late, I say. Don't worry about it. Did work go well? He asks with a gentle smile, his eyes filled with both worry and affection. Yeah, it went okay. My presentation for the new campaign was well received, I reply, feeling a small pang in my chest. Wyatt always supports me, but at the same time, I feel like I've been suppressing my own desires by relying on his kindness. That's great. I knew you could do it, Wyatt says, his words warming my heart. He heads to the kitchen, and I put down my bag sitting on the sofa. I take off my heels and stretch my legs, finally feeling relaxed. Wyatt brings me a plate of chicken and tomato sauce, one of his specialties. Thank you for the food, I say, starting to eat. Wyatt's cooking skills have improved over the years, and I can tell he puts his heart into it. It's delicious. Thank you so much, I say. You're welcome. I'm happy if you enjoy it, Wyatt says, smiling shyly. Seeing his smile reminds me of when we first met 5 years ago. I was an assistant manager, stuck at work, and stopped by a cafe for a change of pace. Wyatt was sitting at the next table, drinking coffee by himself. He had his laptop open and was seriously writing some code. I couldn't help but speak to him. Excuse me, are you an engineer? I asked. Wyatt looked up with a slightly surprised expression. Yes, I am. How did you know? Intuition, and by looking at the code on your screen, I replied. We hit it off. Marketing and engineering seemed like unrelated fields, but we had a surprising number of things in common. Problem-solving methods, the importance of creativity, and so on. Since that day, we started seeing each other frequently, and a year later, we got married. Wyatt's voice brings me back to reality. Grace, what's wrong? He asks. Sorry, I was just lost in thought about work. I lie, not ready to confront the topic. No, about us, Wyatt says, looking puzzled. About us. Is something wrong? I ask, taking a deep breath. I've been avoiding this topic, but I can't run away from it anymore. I have to talk to him now. Wyatt, can we talk about having children again? I ask, my voice trembling. Wyatt's expression clouds over. He puts down his fork and looks at me with a serious gaze. Grace, I know you don't want treatment, but we might still have a chance. Adoption, fostering. The words come pouring out, the feelings I have been suppressing for so long all coming out at once. Grace, calm down, Wyatt says quietly, his voice sounding sad and resigned. I've been thinking about it too. I know you want to have children, but... He seems to be choosing his words carefully. I don't have confidence in becoming a father. Wyatt's confession leaves me speechless. I didn't know he had such anxieties. Wyatt, my father was a terrible person. He was violent and didn't care about his family. There's no guarantee I won't become like him, and I don't even have the ability to have children. Does a man like me have the right to be a father? Tears well up in Wyatt's eyes. You're different. You're kind, compassionate. I'm sure you'd be a wonderful father, I say, taking his hand. We gaze at each other in silence for a long time. Then Wyatt slowly opens his mouth. Okay, let's talk to the doctor again. And if there's no chance, we'll seriously consider adoption, he says. I stand up and hug Wyatt tightly. Thank you, Wyatt. Thank you so much, I say, tears streaming down my cheeks. They are tears of joy and relief that all my anxieties and conflicts have been released. That night, we open our hearts and talk for the first time in a long time about our anxieties, hopes, and our vision for the future. The conversation lasts until late at night. Lying in bed, I stare at the ceiling. The events of the day spin around in my head. My success at work, the conversation with my colleague, and the important conversation with Wyatt. Life takes unexpected turns. When we got married, I never thought we'd face such difficulties. But perhaps by overcoming this difficulty, our bond will become even stronger. Busy days will start again tomorrow. It won't be easy to balance work and family, but I'm sure we can get through it as long as we're together. As I close my eyes, a peaceful sleep comes over me. Tomorrow will surely be the start of a new day. The bedroom is quiet, the sunlight streaming in through the windows. I immediately feel something is off. The right side of the bed is cold. Wyatt isn't there. That's right, his business trip started today. I look at the clock. It's still before 6 o'clock, a little earlier than usual. But now that I'm awake, I can't go back to sleep. I slowly get out of bed and open the curtains. The cityscape of San Francisco is shrouded in morning mist. I go to the kitchen and turn on the coffee maker. The machine starts up with a light sound, the noise echoing in the overly quiet house. It's been 3 days since Wyatt told me about his week-long business trip to Vancouver, Canada. "Grace, I need to talk to you about something," he had said at dinner that night, looking a bit nervous. "What's wrong?" I asked, concerned. "Well, the company has asked me to go on a business trip to Vancouver. It'll be about a week," he explained, his eyes sparkling with a childlike excitement. "A week. That's a long time," I replied, trying to hide my surprise. "It's not a problem. It's actually the launch of a new project. We're going to be working with the Vancouver office on it," he continued, his voice filled with enthusiasm. "This project is a big leap forward for the company. It could be a great opportunity for me too." "That's great," I said, smiling, but something bothered me deep down. To be honest, I'm a little sad that we won't be together for a whole week. And also, I hesitated, not wanting to dampen his excitement. "Grace, are you okay?" he asked with concern. "Yeah, I'm fine." I was just a little surprised. "A week is a long time," I admitted. "Yeah, it is. I'm a little anxious too, to be honest. But this is an important job. You understand, right?" he said, looking at me seriously. "Of course. Good luck with your work," I replied, keeping a smile on my face for his sake. The aroma of coffee fills the room, bringing me back to the present. I pour it into a mug and take a slow sip. The bitterness and aroma spread through my body. I pick up my phone and check my messages. Nothing from Wyatt. It might be too early. I finish breakfast and start getting ready for work. Maybe because I have more time than usual, I put a little more effort into my makeup. I have an important presentation today. I need to get myself psyched up before leaving the house. "Have a safe trip. I'll be waiting to hear from you." I send Wyatt a message. I don't get a reply right away. He's probably still asleep. When I arrive at the office, my colleagues are already busy bustling around. We have a big presentation with a major client today. Everyone looks nervous. "Good morning, Grace." My assistant rushes over. I finish the final check of the materials. "We're all set for the presentation." "Thank you, Emily. You've worked hard," I say, smiling at her enthusiasm. The morning is filled with back-to-back meetings. Final confirmation of the presentation, meetings with team members and strategy meetings with my boss. I don't even have time for lunch. I finally get a break a little after 3 p.m. The presentation is a great success. The client seems satisfied. I go back to my desk and check my phone. Still no message from Wyatt. Maybe his flight was delayed. I start to get a little worried. "Wyatt, did you arrive safely?" I send a short message. I figure I won't get a reply right away, so I go back to work. It's past 6 p.m. when I finally finish my work for the day. Some of my colleagues suggest going out for a drink to celebrate, but I politely decline. "I'm sorry, I'm going home tonight," I say. "Oh, right. Your husband's on a business trip. You must be lonely," Lisa says understandingly. "Well, it's important to have some alone time once in a while, even if you're apart," she adds with a wink. "Yeah, you're right." "Thanks," I reply, giving a wry smile. I leave the office and get into my car. On my way home, I stop by the supermarket. The refrigerator is looking a little bare, and it's been a while since I cooked just for myself. I buy the ingredients for a simple dinner: vegetables, pasta, and white wine. While waiting in line at the checkout, I notice Wyatt's favorite chocolate on a nearby shelf. I can't help but pick it up. I'll surprise him with it when he gets back. It's past 8 o'clock when I get home. I open the front door and am greeted by silence. The house feels strangely large without Wyatt. I'm home, I say out loud, even though no one is there. I go to the kitchen and put the groceries I bought into the refrigerator. I open the wine and pour it into a glass. I feel a little awkward drinking alone, but I want to celebrate today's success. I sit down on the sofa in the living room and turn on the TV. A news program is on. I listen to it as background noise while checking my phone. Still no message from Wyatt. That's strange. I murmur to myself and send another message. Did you arrive in Vancouver? You must be tired, so get some sleep. Right after I press the send button, I get a reply. I arrived. I'm tired, so I'm going to bed early tonight. It's a short reply. Usually Wyatt would give me more details about his situation, but maybe he's just tired from the long trip. Okay, good night, I send a reply and put down my phone. I feel a little uneasy. I start preparing dinner, boiling the pasta and making a simple tomato sauce. I set the table and put out a place setting for one. As I eat, I think back over the day. I achieved a great success at work. But when I came home, I felt a sense of emptiness. Is it because Wyatt isn't here? I finish eating and am cleaning up when I suddenly feel something is wrong. I look at the entrance and see Wyatt's passport case sitting there. No way, I say to myself, hurrying to open the case. Wyatt's passport is indeed inside. What's going on? I try to make sense of the situation with my confused mind. Wyatt was supposed to be on an international flight. He couldn't enter Canada without his passport. I grab my phone and try to call Wyatt, but the call doesn't go through. It goes straight to voicemail. Wyatt, it's me. Your passport is at home. Are you okay? Please call me back soon. I send a text message to, but he doesn't read it. Anxiety spreads through my chest. Where is Wyatt? Did he really go to Vancouver, or... No, I don't want to think about it. I need to trust Wyatt. There must be some reason, but a small seed of doubt sprouts in my heart. Wyatt has been acting a little strange lately. He's been coming home late more often and spending more time on his phone. When I approach him, he quickly turns off the screen. No, that's not right, I tell myself. Wyatt isn't that kind of person. He's probably just busy with work. But how can I explain the passport? Sleepless nights follow. I wait for Wyatt to contact me, thinking about all the possibilities. Bad thoughts keep popping up and disappearing. Morning comes, but there is still no message from Wyatt. As I get ready for work, I make up my mind. I'll wait and see what happens today. If I still don't hear from him when I arrive at the office, my colleagues congratulate me on yesterday's success, but my mind is elsewhere. I'm completely preoccupied with Wyatt. Grace, are you okay? Lisa asks with concern. I hesitate for a moment at Lisa's question, then decide to take the plunge. Lisa, I need to talk to you about something, I say. What is it? She asks, looking serious. I think Wyatt might be lying to me, I confess, my voice trembling. Lisa looks surprised. What do you mean? I tell her everything that has happened since yesterday. About the passport, Wyatt's strange behavior. Lisa listens with a serious expression. Grace, it does sound a little strange, but it's too early to jump to conclusions. Maybe he really is just busy with work, she suggests. I know, but I can't help but worry, I admit. I see. Well, how about this? Why don't you check Wyatt's phone's location information? It's an emergency feature. It's only natural for a married couple to know each other's location, right? Lisa suggests. I hesitate at Lisa's suggestion. It would be an invasion of Wyatt's privacy, but to dispel this anxiety... Okay, I'll try it, I say, my hands trembling as I operate my smartphone. I log into the family account I share with Wyatt, and open the location information page. I gasp when I see the map displayed on the screen. The pin indicating Wyatt's location is not in Vancouver. It's in the suburbs of San Francisco. He lied to me, I say, feeling like the world is going dark. My mind goes blank. Why did he lie? He hadn't gone to Vancouver at all. But why? Why would he lie? All sorts of possibilities race through my mind. An affair, a secret job, or I pick up my phone and try to call Wyatt, but my fingers are shaking so badly I can't dial the number. What should I do? Should I confront him or should I wait and see a little longer? I take a deep breath and try to calm myself down. I need to think rationally. Accusing him without evidence might only ruin our relationship. But could I really stay silent? Grace, are you okay? Lisa's voice startles me. Oh, Lisa, it's the location information. Wyatt wasn't in Vancouver, I say, my voice trembling. Lisa's eyes widen in surprise. No way. But Grace, it could still be a mistake. A GPS error or something. Maybe. But calm down. It's too early to draw any conclusions. Let's wait and see a little longer, she suggests. I nod slightly at Lisa's words. I spend the rest of the day going through the motions at work. My mind consumed by thoughts of Wyatt. On my way home, I try to call Wyatt several times in the car, but I can't bring myself to actually make the call. When I get home, silence envelopes me. The house feels even more lonely without Wyatt. As I prepare dinner, I try to gather my thoughts. Should I trust Wyatt, or should I take action to dispel my doubts? Suddenly, my phone rings. It's Wyatt. I take a deep breath and answer the phone. Hello, Wyatt, I say, trying to sound normal. Hey, Grace. How was your day? Wyatt's voice sounds normal too. It was okay. How about you? Is your work in Vancouver going well? I ask, my voice trembling slightly. Yeah, it's going well. A little busy, though, he replies. My heart aches at Wyatt's casual tone. I see, I say, my voice cold. Wyatt, I have something to ask you. Are you really in Vancouver? There's a gasp on the other end of the line. What are you talking about, Grace? Of course, I'm in Vancouver, he says, his voice trembling. Don't lie to me. I checked your location information, I say, my voice shaking with anger and sadness. Silence. Grace, let me explain, Wyatt says, his voice trembling. Then explain, I say desperately, trying to maintain my composure. Just as Wyatt starts to speak, the call suddenly disconnects. Wyatt! I try calling him back several times, but the call won't go through. Anxiety and anger well up inside me. What is Wyatt hiding? And why did the call get disconnected? I look out the window and see that it has started to rain. The San Francisco cityscape is being enveloped by a curtain of rain. I make up my mind. I'm going to take a day off tomorrow and go see for myself, to the place where Wyatt is supposed to be. I have to face the truth, whatever it may be, even if it might change our relationship. The moment I became certain of Wyatt's lies, a fiery rage and anxiety ignited within me that I could no longer contain. Memories of our 5 years of marriage flashed through my mind like a whirlwind, leaving me with the feeling that everything was crumbling around me. However, the composure and logical thinking I had cultivated as a career woman prevented me from being completely swallowed by the emotional vortex. Calm down, Grace, I told myself, repeating deep breaths. I suppressed my emotions and started to think about my next move. The thought solidified within me. I need to gather evidence. I sat in the living room of our home and opened my laptop, feeling my fingertips tremble slightly. I launched the software I had developed to track Wyatt's online activity. It was software I, as an IT professional, had created for security research. I couldn't help but feel it was a cruel twist of fate that I would be using it to investigate my own husband. Wyatt's online activity history appeared on the screen one after another, sending and receiving emails, browsing history, social media posts. Everything was laid out before my eyes as data. I carefully scrutinized each piece of information, and then my eyes caught sight of frequent access to a particular blog. It was titled Happy Family Life. Feeling a sense of dread, I opened the blog. Displayed on the screen was a picture of a happy family. A young woman was smiling, holding a small child, and then I gasped at the sight of the man standing next to her. It was undoubtedly Wyatt. The Wyatt in the picture was slightly different from the Wyatt I knew. He had a softer expression and was smiling happily. I felt a sharp pain in my chest as I read through the blog posts. The suspicion within me turned into certainty. The woman writing the post referred to Wyatt as my husband and chronicled their daily life and parenting experiences. There was a side of Wyatt that I didn't know. Why would he do this? I muttered, tears welling up in my eyes and falling onto the keyboard. But I quickly wiped them away and tried to regain my composure. Next, I checked the location information on Wyatt's phone. The GPS records clearly showed that he was frequently visiting a specific location. It was a quiet residential area in the suburbs of San Francisco. I wrote down the address in my notebook. "This is her house," I muttered bitterly as I investigated further. I made another discovery. Wyatt's bank account history. On the same day every month, the same amount of money was being transferred to the same account. The name on the receiving account was the same as the name of the woman who wrote the blog. "Child support," I said, stunned. This wasn't just an affair. Wyatt was living a completely double life. I stood up from the chair and paced restlessly around the room. My mind was in turmoil, my emotions fluctuating wildly: anger, sadness, the pain of betrayal, and above all, a deep sense of disappointment washed over me. 5 years. I've been deceived for 5 years, I said, leaning against the wall and slowly sinking to the floor. Tears streamed down my face, but they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of anger and humiliation. I looked back on our married life, our first meeting, our courtship, our wedding. They were all happy memories, but now those memories were tainted with a bitter aftertaste. What hurt the most was when we gave up on having children, when Wyatt was diagnosed with infertility. I was devastated, but I accepted it for his sake and decided to live a life just the two of us. It was ironic that that decision was now hurting me. If I had insisted on options like adoption or artificial insemination back then, I thought that maybe things would have been different. But I quickly dismissed the thought. No, it's not my fault. Wyatt chose this path. I took a deep breath and stood up again. I stood in front of the mirror and looked at myself. My eyes were red and swollen from crying, but a strong glint of determination shone in them. I won't let this defeat me, I told myself. I have the right to know the truth, and I have the right to take back my life. I sat down at the computer again and continued my investigation. I was determined to uncover the full extent of Wyatt's lies and gather the information I needed to protect myself. I collected as much information as I could about Wyatt and his other family, blog posts, bank records, GPS history. I compiled everything and organized it chronologically. By doing so, the full picture of Wyatt's double life gradually became clear. As I reread the blog posts carefully, I realized that Wyatt's relationship with the woman had begun about 3 years ago, right around the time Wyatt and I gave up on having children. I remembered that Wyatt's behavior had changed a little around that time. I thought it was work stress at the time, but now that I think about it, maybe it was guilt. 3 years ago, right after we went on that trip together, I recalled bitterly that trip was meant to be a fresh start, to accept the reality that we couldn't have children and move on to a new chapter in our lives. But for Wyatt, It must have meant something completely different. I also checked Wyatt's phone call history. Sure enough, there were frequent calls to a specific number. When I looked up the number, I found that it was registered under the name of the woman from the blog, Emily Johnson. I said the name aloud, the name of a woman I had never met, but who had now drastically changed my life. I wanted to know more about Emily, but at the same time, I was afraid that knowing more would hurt me even more. After some internal struggle, I decided to continue my investigation. I found Emily's profile on social media. There were no pictures of her with Wyatt, but there were many pictures of her child. I stared at the child's face. The child looked a little like Wyatt, but I couldn't be sure. I might need a DNA test, I muttered. The thought brought a fresh wave of pain to my heart. As I continued my investigation, I noticed a change in my own emotions. My heart, which had initially been filled with anger and sadness, gradually regained its composure. It wasn't resignation, but rather a feeling of strong determination. I have a right to know the truth, I told myself again, and I have the right to decide my own life based on that truth. As the night wore on, my investigation went even deeper. I started to look into Wyatt's work-related documents as well. There I made an interesting discovery. During the period when Wyatt had claimed to be on frequent business trips, he had actually filed for vacation days with the company. Oh, I see. I chuckled bitterly. It wasn't business trips. It was time with that family. This discovery brought even more pain to my heart. Wyatt's lies were deeper and more elaborate than I had imagined. He wasn't just having an affair with another woman. He was living a complete double life. I reflected on my marriage with Wyatt. We certainly had our problems. The stress of not being able to have children, the busyness of our work, and the intimacy that had gradually faded. But I still valued our relationship. I believed that we could overcome our difficulties and build a stronger bond. But Wyatt didn't think so. He didn't think so, I muttered sadly. As the night deepened, a certain resolve solidified within me. I couldn't just accept the situation. I had the right to take back my life, and that started with confronting Wyatt. I organized and saved all the evidence I had gathered, and I reminded myself that I needed to talk to a lawyer. The thought of the possibility of divorce, of course, brought a pain to my heart, but I knew I had to move forward. Before dawn, I finally turned off my computer. I was exhausted, but at the same time, I felt a strange sense of liberation. The pain of knowing the truth was immense, but the fact that I was no longer being deceived empowered me. I looked out the window and saw that the sky was gradually getting brighter. It was the beginning of a new day. I took a deep breath and thought about my future life. Certainly, the road ahead would be filled with difficulties. But I had the truth, and with that truth, I had the courage to build a new life. Well, Wyatt, I said quietly, when you get back, we need to have a long talk. With that, I headed to bed. I needed to get some sleep because when I woke up, a new chapter in my life would begin, no matter how difficult that chapter might be. As I waited for Wyatt to come home, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease. My heart was in turmoil, a whirlwind of complex emotions, anger, sadness, and anxiety all mixed together. I sat on the living room sofa, staring out the window, taking deep breath after deep breath. Calm down. I have to calm down, I told myself. But despite my words, my hands were trembling slightly. As the clock ticked by, memories of Wyatt flooded my mind. His happy smile on our wedding day, the romantic nights of our honeymoon, and the various challenges we had overcome together. Those memories now tormented me with a bitter aftertaste. Why? How did it come to this? I murmured, tears threatening to spill from my eyes, but I desperately held them back. Now was not the time to cry. I had the right to hear the truth, and I needed the courage to take back my life. The moment I heard the front door open, my body froze. I took a deep breath and slowly stood up. I was desperately trying to control my emotions. "I'm home," Wyatt's voice rang out. his usual calm, gentle voice. The normality of it all further unsettled my heart. "What?" "Welcome home," I replied, trying my best to sound normal, but there was a slight tremor in my voice. Wyatt entered the living room and approached me with a smile. "Hey, did you miss me?" he said, trying to embrace me. But I took a step back. At that moment, Wyatt's expression changed. He seemed to realize that something was wrong. "Grace, what's wrong?" There was a mixture of worry and confusion in his voice. I took a deep breath and looked directly into Wyatt's eyes. "Wyatt, we need to talk," I said, my voice trembling with the weight of the confrontation. Wyatt hesitated for a moment, then sat down on the sofa. I also sat down in the chair opposite him. A heavy silence filled the air between us. "Wyatt," I began, suppressing my trembling voice, "did you really go to Vancouver?" Wyatt's expression froze for a moment. Surprise and fear flickered in his eyes. "What?" "Of course, I did," he stammered, his voice lacking conviction. "Don't lie," I said, my voice coming out unexpectedly cold. "You can't go to Vancouver without your passport." The blood drained from Wyatt's face. He was speechless, his mouth hanging open. "I know everything," I continued, my voice shaking with anger and sadness. "About Emily, about the child, about your double life, everything." Wyatt looked up at me, fear and guilt etched on his face. "Grace, I can explain," he said desperately, trying to maintain his composure. "Then explain," I said, desperately trying to maintain my own composure. "Why did you betray me? Why did you keep lying to me? Why, Wyatt?" Wyatt sighed deeply. He buried his face in his hands and remained silent for a while. Then he slowly raised his head and looked me in the eye. "At first, it was just an affair," he began in a faint voice. "After we found out we couldn't have children, I lost my confidence. You know, my self-esteem as a man was wounded." I frowned at his words. "So, is that an excuse for having an affair?" I asked, fighting back tears. "No, it's not an excuse," Wyatt said, shaking his head. "But that's how it started. I met Emily and she needed me. And then she got pregnant." I finished his sentence. Wyatt nodded slowly. "Yes. When Emily told me she was pregnant, I panicked. But at the same time, I was happy. I thought the doctor's diagnosis was wrong." His words pierced my heart. While I thought we couldn't have children, he had fathered a child with another woman. That reality deeply wounded me. "Why didn't you tell me then?" I asked, fighting back tears. Wyatt's shoulders slumped. "I was scared. I was scared of losing you. And to be honest, I wanted to continue both lives, my life with you and my life with Emily and the child." I listened to Wyatt's words in disbelief. Anger flared up within me again. "Do you understand what you've done?" My voice trembled with rage. "You completely betrayed our marriage, our trust." Wyatt covered his face with his hands. "I know. I'm so sorry," he said, his voice muffled. "But you're paying child support to take responsibility," I interrupted. $800 every month. I saw your bank records." Wyatt looked at me with a surprised expression. You investigated that far," he said, his voice filled with disbelief. I gave a cold laugh. "Yes, after I realized your lies. I investigated thoroughly, everything about the other family you built." Wyatt fell silent, as if at a loss for words. A heavy silence descended upon the room. After a while, I asked quietly, "So, what are you going to do now, Wyatt?" Wyatt took a deep breath and began to speak slowly, choosing his words carefully. Honestly, I don't know. But one thing is for sure. I don't want to lose you. I gave a bitter laugh at his words. You don't want to lose me, Wyatt? You already lost me the moment you told your first lie. Grace, please, Wyatt pleaded desperately. Can't you give me another chance? We can find a way to repair our relationship. I looked into Wyatt's pleading eyes. A variety of emotions swirled within me. Anger, sadness, the pain of betrayal, and the faint embers of love. But those embers had been almost extinguished by Wyatt's lies. Wyatt, I said quietly but with a firm tone, you lied to me for 5 years. During that time, I believed in you, loved you, and supported you. But you, I choked up, seeing my pain. Wyatt seemed to realize the gravity of his actions once again. Grace, I was a terrible husband, he admitted, his voice filled with regret. Yes, I said coldly. You were a terrible husband. Wyatt winced at my cold words, but he couldn't argue. He knew full well that his actions were unforgivable. Grace, Wyatt searched for words. I don't want to give up on our life together. Isn't there anything we can do? Like going to counseling. I gave a wry smile at Wyatt's suggestion. Counseling, Wyatt? This isn't something we can solve with counseling. You destroyed the foundation of our marriage. Wyatt's shoulders slumped, as if defeated by my words. So, you want a divorce, he said, his voice filled with resignation. I took a deep breath. Honestly, I don't know right now. But one thing is for sure. I can't continue this relationship as it is. I understand, Wyatt said, nodding slowly. So, what should I do? I stood up and looked out the window. Outside, the darkness of night was deepening. It was as if I was staring into my own future in that darkness. First, you need to leave here, I said without looking at Wyatt. Let's live separately for a while. I need time to think. Wyatt stood up with a surprised look. Leave, Grace? That's... Please, Wyatt. My voice was filled with exhaustion and sadness. I don't want to see your face right now. I need time. Wyatt seemed to sense my determination. He nodded slowly and started packing his things. I watched silently as Wyatt packed his bags. My heart filled with a mix of emotions, anger, sadness, and strangely a little bit of relief. The pain of knowing the truth was immense, but at the same time, it was also a liberation from living a lie. As Wyatt headed for the door, I called out to him. Wyatt, I said, choosing my words carefully, about Emily and the child. What are you going to tell them? Wyatt sighed deeply. I'll tell them the truth. I won't lie anymore. I nodded slowly. Yes, you've lied enough. Wyatt looked at me one last time, his eyes filled with regret and sadness. Grace, I'm truly sorry. I know an apology isn't enough, but if you can forgive me... I can't promise anything right now, I said calmly. Give me time, and you need to think about what you've done. Wyatt nodded silently and opened the door. As I watched him walk away, I felt that my life was about to change drastically. After the sound of the door closing, I finally let the tears flow. They were tears of anger and sadness, but also tears of liberation. I sank into the sofa and cried for a while. As time passed, my heart gradually calmed down. I stood up and went to the kitchen. As I made tea, I started thinking about my future. Certainly, the current situation was painful and difficult, but I realized that a new strength was budding within me. I had the courage to overcome this difficulty and build a new life. With a warm cup of tea in my hand, I returned to the living room. I looked out the window and saw the stars shining in the night sky. The sight gave me a little comfort. Now, what am I going to do? I murmured to myself. I looked around the apartment, which was filled with memories of Wyatt. The furniture we had chosen together, the pictures we had taken together, and various other things that symbolized our life together. Looking at them, I felt a pang in my heart, but at the same time, I felt a new determination growing within me. I decided to take this difficult situation as an opportunity for growth. I have the chance to start a new life, I told myself. I opened my laptop and started taking notes. It was a list of things I needed to do: consult a lawyer, check my financial situation, look for a new place to live, review my work situation, seek support from friends and family. As I made the list, I gradually regained my confidence. Surely the road ahead would be filled with difficulties, but I had the truth. And with that truth, I had the courage to build a new life. I took a deep breath and looked out the window again. It was still some time before dawn, but in my heart, a new morning had already begun. That night, I could hardly sleep. The conversation with Wyatt kept replaying in my head. His words, his expressions, and my own emotions. Everything was a chaotic mess in the morning. I dragged my tired body to the kitchen. As I made coffee, I thought back to yesterday. Was I really right to do this? I asked myself, but I quickly shook my head. No, this was necessary. While eating breakfast, I organized what I needed to do today. First, I decided to call work and take a few days off. I figured it would be difficult to concentrate on work in this situation. Next, I called my best friend Jane. Jane, are you okay? Jane immediately noticed that something was wrong with my voice. Grace, are you okay? Did something happen? Jane's voice was laced with concern. I took a deep breath and told her everything that had happened yesterday. About Wyatt's betrayal, the existence of his secret child, and my decision to separate. Everything! Jane cried out in surprise and anger. What the hell, Grace? Are you really okay? I'll come over there right now, she said, her voice filled with worry. Thank you, Jane, but I'm okay for now. Just listening to me is enough, I replied, feeling my heart warm at my friend's offer. We talked for a long time. Jane listened to my story, sometimes offering encouragement, sometimes sharing my anger. Through that conversation, I was able to gradually sort out my feelings. After hanging up the phone, I contacted a lawyer's office. I felt I needed legal advice, including the possibility of divorce. After scheduling an appointment with a lawyer, I walked around the apartment. I could no longer find peace in this place filled with memories of Wyatt. I need to make a fresh start in a new place, I decided. I started browsing real estate websites, looking for a new apartment. Moving meant more than just changing residences. It symbolized the beginning of a new life. That evening, I called my parents. It was hard to tell them the truth, but I mustered up the courage and told them everything. Dad, Mom, I have something to tell you about Wyatt and me, I began, my voice trembling. My parents expressed surprise and sadness at my story, but at the same time, they promised to support me fully. Grace, your decision is the right one, my mother said. We're always on your side, my father agreed. That's right. If you need anything, just tell us. Financial support, emotional support, anything, my parents said, their words bringing tears to my eyes. Thank you, really thank you, I said, feeling grateful for their support. After hanging up the phone, I sat on the sofa and sighed deeply. In one day, my life had changed drastically, but at the same time, I felt a new strength budding within me. That night, I took out a notebook and began to write down my thoughts and feelings. It was a kind of therapy for me. Today, I took the first step towards a new life, I wrote. Certainly, there will be many difficulties ahead, but I have the truth, and I have the courage to take back my life. I put down my pen and took a deep breath. From tomorrow, I needed to start making concrete preparations for my new life. Legal procedures, finding a new place to live, and above all, facing myself one step at a time, steadily. I told myself. I looked out the window and saw the full moon shining in the night sky. The sight gave me a little peace of mind. Certainly, it might be a dark time now, but beyond this darkness, there must be a new light waiting for me. As I lay in bed, I held on to the hope for tomorrow. A new chapter in my life was about to begin. Weeks passed, and my life slowly began to take a new shape. I had rented a small apartment and started living alone. Getting used to the new environment wasn't easy, but I was trying my best every day to adapt to an independent life. Today was an important day. I had an appointment with Wyatt's lawyer to discuss matters of property division and child support as we moved forward with the divorce proceedings. I took a deep breath and opened the door to the lawyer's office. When I entered the reception room, Wyatt and his lawyer were already seated. The moment our eyes met, a sharp pain pierced my chest, but I tried my best not to show it. "Hello," I greeted them in a calm voice. Wyatt only gave a small nod, his face etched with fatigue and regret. My lawyer started the conversation. "So, today we want to discuss the issues of property division and child support as we move forward with the divorce proceedings," my lawyer said. As the discussion progressed, I occasionally glanced at Wyatt. He looked thinner than before, with dark circles under his eyes. It was clear that this situation was taking a toll on him as well. But my sympathy didn't last long. When my lawyer brought up the topic of child support, Wyatt suddenly started to fidget. "Wyatt," my lawyer said, "we need to know the details about your child support payments for your other family." Wyatt looked up and met my gaze. His eyes were filled with fear and guilt. "Actually," Wyatt stammered, "about the child. I had a DNA test. The results say the child isn't mine." A heavy silence fell over the room. I couldn't believe my ears. "What?" My voice trembled. Wyatt took a deep breath and continued. "I did a DNA test. The results say the child isn't mine. When I confronted Emily, she admitted to having an affair. The child belongs to another man." My mind reeled from this unexpected turn of events. Anger, surprise, and a strange sense of relief washed over me. "So," my lawyer began, "you are legally not the child's father." Wyatt nodded slowly. "That's right. I was deceived. I felt something shift within me. The anger and hatred I had been carrying were slowly dissipating." "Wyatt," I said quietly, you broke our marriage. You said it was for the child, but the child wasn't even yours." Wyatt covered his face with his hands. "I know. I'm so sorry," he said, his voice muffled. I took a deep breath. I felt something shift within me. The anger and hatred I had been carrying were slowly dissipating. "Wyatt," I said again, "I've decided to stop hating you." Wyatt looked up at me in surprise. "Grace, don't get me wrong," I said calmly. "This doesn't mean I forgive you. It just means I'm not going to let you hurt me anymore." Wyatt nodded slowly. His eyes held a mix of regret and relief. The lawyers, though bewildered by this unexpected development, continued the discussion. The issue of child support was resolved, but the details of property division still needed to be worked out. As the meeting ended, and I was about to leave the office, Wyatt called out to me, "Grace!" His voice was faint and shaky. I turned around to look at him. "I'm truly sorry. I know an apology isn't enough, but I still want to say it. I'm really, truly sorry from the bottom of my heart," he said, his eyes filled with sincerity. I looked at Wyatt, a whirlwind of emotions swirling within me, anger, sadness, and strangely, a flicker of pity. "I accept your apology," I said quietly, "but we can't go back to the way things were. You know that, right?" Wyatt nodded sadly. "I know. I want you to be happy." I gave a small smile. "Thank you. I intend to find my own happiness." With that, I left the office. Stepping outside, I took a deep breath. The air felt fresher than before. That evening, I was at home talking to my best friend Jane on the phone. I told her everything that had happened. "I can't believe it," Jane exclaimed. "It wasn't Wyatt's child." "I know," I chuckled wryly. "Life is full of surprises, isn't it?" "So, how are you feeling?" Jane asked with concern. I thought for a moment before answering honestly. "It's complicated. But strangely, I feel lighter. What do you mean? Jane asked. Well, I searched for the right words. Because I thought Wyatt couldn't have children. I was trying to accept that we couldn't have a family. But it turns out there was nothing wrong with Wyatt. Maybe this is a chance for a new beginning. Grace. Jane's voice was filled with warmth. That's wonderful, isn't it? Yeah, I smiled. Maybe this is a chance for a new beginning. After hanging up the phone, I stepped out onto my balcony, looking up at the twilight sky. I pondered my future. The past few months had been undeniably painful, but through those hardships, I had discovered a strength within myself that I never knew existed. And now, I was starting to look towards new possibilities. A few days later, I visited a local fertility clinic. I wanted to discuss my options with a doctor. Grace, the doctor smiled kindly, you're still 32. There's a good chance you can get pregnant. Hope flickered within me. Really? Of course, the doctor nodded. There are no guarantees, but there are various options available like artificial insemination and in vitro fertilization. I listened intently to the doctor's explanation. A new flame of hope began to ignite within me. Leaving the clinic, I stopped by a park, sitting on a bench watching children play on the playground. I imagined my future. Someday, I murmured to myself. At that moment, I felt a new resolve blossoming within me. I would live my life for myself from now on, and I would pursue my own happiness. A few weeks later, I took up a new hobby, yoga. I started attending yoga classes where I learned the importance of balancing my mind and body. After the yoga classes, I started talking to Mila, a woman who was also attending the same class. Divorce was tough. Mila shared her experience, but I discovered my true self through it. I resonated with Mila's words. I'm in the middle of that process myself. We gradually became closer, sharing our experiences with each other. Talking to someone who had gone through a similar experience helped me process my own emotions. One day, I was assigned a major project at work. It was a big challenge for me. Grace, you can do it. My boss encouraged me. I decided to put all my effort into this opportunity. By immersing myself in my work, I reaffirmed my value and regained my confidence. The project was a success, and I received high praise within the company. This success gave me a great sense of accomplishment. I can do this, I told myself. As time passed, I gradually started moving forward. I cherished the time I spent with my friends and family, and I discovered new hobbies and interests. One weekend, I participated in a local volunteer activity. There, I met many wonderful people, including a man named Mike. Mike was kind and compassionate. I enjoyed talking to him. Grace, Mike said to me one day, I feel so at peace when I talk to you. His words warmed my heart, but at the same time, I felt a little scared. I'm sorry, Mike, I said honestly. I'm not ready for a new relationship yet. Mike smiled gently. I understand. There's no rush. I'm happy just being your friend. I appreciated his understanding. I was learning the importance of moving forward at my own pace without rushing. A year passed, and my life had changed dramatically. I had rediscovered my strength and worth, and I had built a new life for myself. One day, I was sitting on a park bench, writing in my diary. Today, Wyatt, it's exactly 1 year since I separated from Wyatt, I wrote. This past year may have been the most difficult time of my life, but at the same time, it was the period when I grew the most. I put down my pen and looked up at the sky. White clouds drifted peacefully across the blue expanse. I've learned about my own strength. I continued writing, and I've learned that happiness lies within myself. Sure, I'm not perfect yet. Sometimes I feel lonely, but I've come to accept that it's all part of life. I closed my diary and took a deep breath. The sound of children's laughter echoed through the park. I smiled as I watched them. Suddenly, my smartphone rang. It was a call from the fertility clinic. Hello, this is Grace Johnson. Miss Johnson, this is Dr. Lee. The results of your recent tests are in. Could you come in for a consultation? My heart pounded in my chest. Yes, of course. How about tomorrow afternoon? Would 3 p.m. tomorrow be all right? Yes, that's fine. Thank you. After hanging up, I took a deep breath. For the past year, I had been exploring the path of fertility treatment, believing in my possibilities. Whatever the outcome, I was proud of my decision. The next day, I headed to the clinic. While waiting for my name to be called in the waiting room, my hands trembled with nervousness. Grace Johnson, the nurse, called out. Entering the examination room, Dr. Lee greeted me with a gentle smile. Miss Johnson, please have a seat. I took a deep breath and sat down. I've looked at the results. Dr. Lee began in a calm tone. Your ovarian function is good. It's definitely worth trying in vitro fertilization. Hope surged through me. Really? Of course. Dr. Lee nodded. I can't guarantee 100% success, but considering your age and health condition, the chances of success are high. Tears welled up in my eyes. Thank you, doctor. However, Dr. Lee continued, in vitro fertilization is a physically and emotionally stressful process. Please think carefully before making a decision. I nodded with a serious expression. Yes, I understand. Leaving the clinic, I was overwhelmed by a mix of emotions. Hope and anxiety intertwined within me. I decided to call my best friend Jane. Jane, can you talk now? Of course, Grace. What's up? I told her everything that had happened at the clinic. Grace, that's wonderful news. Jane's voice was full of excitement. Yeah, but honestly, I'm scared, I confessed. What if it doesn't work? Grace, Jane's voice was gentle. You're a strong woman. You can overcome any outcome, and we'll be here to support you. Her words encouraged me. Thank you, Jane. That night, I couldn't sleep. I thought deeply about my life. Having children wasn't everything in my life, but it was something I strongly desired. The next morning, I made up my mind. I decided to go through with in vitro fertilization. A few weeks later, I started the in vitro fertilization process. It wasn't an easy journey with hormone injections and frequent checkups, but I kept moving forward. One day, after the egg retrieval surgery, I was resting in the recovery room. A nurse gently approached me. Miss Johnson, you have a visitor. Would you like to see them? I was surprised. I hadn't told anyone about the surgery today. Yes, please. The person who entered the room was Mike. Mike, I exclaimed in surprise. How? Mike smiled shyly. I'm sorry for coming suddenly. I heard from Jane. I was worried. I was touched by his kindness. We had been friends for the past year. Mike had always respected my feelings and never rushed me. Thank you, Mike. I'm glad you came. Mike sat beside my bed. Are you okay? Was it painful? I shook my head. I'm fine. Just a little tired. We talked quietly. Mike's presence gave me a sense of peace. A few days later, I visited the clinic again. Today was the day of the embryo transfer. Before heading to the operating room, I took a deep breath. I can do this, I told myself. The surgery went smoothly. Dr. Lee smiled at me kindly. Now all we have to do is wait for the results. I nodded. Yes. The next 2 weeks felt like an eternity. I tried to distract myself from my anxiety by immersing myself in work and hobbies. And finally, the day came to find out the results. With trembling hands, I picked up the pregnancy test kit. I took a deep breath and followed the instructions. The 3-minute wait felt like forever. I could hear my own heartbeat, and then the results appeared. I stared at the test kit. There were 2 distinct lines displayed. Positive. I murmured, tears suddenly welling up in my eyes. Joy, relief, and a little bit of anxiety swirled within me. With trembling hands, I picked up my smartphone and called Jane. Jane! My voice was choked with tears. I think I'm pregnant. Oh, Grace! Jane's voice was filled with joy. Congratulations! I'm so happy for you. As I shared my happiness with my friend, I started to realize that a new life was growing within me. Later, I underwent a formal test at the clinic, and my pregnancy was confirmed. I felt the beginning of a new life. A few weeks later, I mustered the courage to tell Mike the truth. We were sitting on a quiet park bench. Mike, I started, taking a deep breath. There's something I want to tell you. Mike smiled gently. What is it? I'm pregnant, I said quietly. Mike's expression changed to one of surprise and joy. Grace, that's wonderful news. Congratulations. But then a hint of worry appeared on his face. I smiled gently. Mike, it's in vitro fertilization. I made the decision on my own. Mike's expression softened with relief. I see, Grace. Your strength truly amazes me. I took Mike's hand. Mike, I can't thank you enough. You've been such a good friend to me this past year. And I hesitated slightly. If you're willing, I've been thinking maybe we can take our relationship to the next level. Mike squeezed my hand back. Grace, I've been wanting that for a long time, but I didn't want to rush you. We gazed at each other silently, then shared a gentle kiss. Over the next few months, my life changed drastically. My belly grew day by day, and I could feel the new life growing within me. Mike fully supported my pregnancy, and we gradually deepened our relationship. One day, I made a significant decision. I decided to tell Wyatt the truth. I met Wyatt at a cafe. My belly was now clearly showing that I was pregnant. When Wyatt entered the cafe, his eyes widened in surprise. Grace, you! I smiled slightly. Yes, I'm pregnant. We sat down, and I calmly explained the situation, about the in vitro fertilization, and about Mike. Wyatt listened in silence, his expression a mix of complex emotions. Grace, Wyatt finally spoke. Congratulations. You seem happy. I nodded. Thank you, Wyatt. Wyatt hesitated for a moment before continuing. I'm truly sorry I hurt you, but I'm really glad you found a new life. I nodded sincerely at his words. Wyatt, we hurt each other a lot, but now I want to move forward. Wyatt nodded quietly. Yes, I truly wish you happiness, Grace. After leaving the cafe, I took a deep breath. I felt like I had been completely freed from the burden of the past. A few months later, I gave birth to a healthy baby girl. I named her Emma. In the hospital room, holding little Emma in my arms, I felt the wonder of life. Until just 2 years ago, I had almost given up on having children, and now I was a mother. Mike entered the room and sat beside me and Emma. She's truly beautiful, Mike said gently. Yes, she is. We gazed at Emma quietly, and then Mike suddenly turned serious. Grace, he said softly, I want to be Emma's father, and I want to be your husband. I looked at Mike, tears welling up in my eyes. Mike, my voice trembled with emotion. I want to be a family with you too. Mike gently hugged me and Emma. A year later, I had a small wedding ceremony with Mike. We only invited close friends and family. Jane served as my maid of honor. In her speech, she said, Grace, you are a truly strong woman. You overcame hardships and found your own happiness. I'm proud to be your friend. After the ceremony, Mike and I spent a quiet moment together. Mike, I said gently, thank you. You taught me how to love again. Mike took my hand. No, Grace. You taught me what true love is. I'm so happy I met you. We gazed at each other tenderly and kissed. That night, basking in the afterglow of the wedding, I stood alone on the balcony. I looked up at the starry sky and reflected on my life. The difficult days, the moments when I felt despair, and the moments when new hope blossomed. Everything had shaped who I was today. I felt a new strength blossoming within me. I was confident that I could overcome any hardship that came my way. Mike approached from behind and placed his hand on my shoulder. What are you thinking about? Mike asked gently. I smiled and turned around. Just thinking about the wonders of life. Mike nodded. Yes, life is truly unpredictable. But I continued. Maybe that's what makes it beautiful. We quietly gazed at the night view and talked about our future together. The next day, I woke up early and decided to write in my diary. I picked up my pen and began to write from my heart. Dear Emma, today I started a new life. I married your dad, and we officially became a family. But maybe the new chapter of my life began the day you were born. Emma, you are my miracle. You gave me hope and courage. Life can be cruel and unfair at times. I've experienced major setbacks and disappointments, but even in those times, I learned the importance of never giving up and always moving forward. And what awaited me beyond that was a precious family. You and Dad, Emma, you may also experience hardships in your life, but please never lose hope. No matter how dark the night, the morning will always come. And Dad and I will always be on your side. We truly wish for your happiness. With love, Mom. I put down my pen and took a deep breath. Tears of happiness welled up in my eyes. Just then, I heard Emma's cry. I smiled and stood up, heading to her room. Good morning, Emma, I said gently as I picked at my daughter. It looks like it's going to be a wonderful day today. Mike also woke up and came to join us. Good morning, my precious family, Mike said, gently hugging us both. I wish this moment could last forever, but at the same time, I was no longer afraid of the changes in life, because I believed that no matter what changes came my way, I could overcome them with my beloved family by my side. A few years later, I became pregnant again. This time, it was a natural pregnancy. When we heard the test results, Mike and I cried tears of joy. Emma was also overjoyed at the prospect of having a little brother or sister. During my pregnancy, I sometimes felt anxious, but whenever that happened, the presence of Mike and Emma always gave me courage. And then a little earlier than expected, I gave birth to a baby boy. We named him Noah. In the hospital room, when Emma held her little brother for the first time, I felt the strength of our family bond. Mommy, Noah is so tiny, Emma said with surprise. I smiled. Yes, he is, but he'll grow bigger and bigger from now on. Mike placed his hand on my shoulder. You're a truly wonderful mother, Grace. My heart overflowed with happiness. I remembered the pain I had once felt and realized that it was because of that experience that I could savor my current happiness even more deeply. That night, after the children had gone to bed, Mike and I talked quietly in the living room. Grace, Mike said, I'm so glad I met you. I smiled. Me too, Mike. You taught me how to love again. We snuggled close together and looked at the starry sky outside the window. I reflected on my life, the difficult days, the times when I had lost hope, and now the new happiness I had found. All those experiences had shaped who I was today, and there would be many more challenges ahead. But I was no longer afraid, because I believed that with my beloved family by my side, I could overcome any hardship. Hey, Mike, I said suddenly, struck by an idea. I wonder if we should write a book about our story. Mike looked at me in surprise. A book, Grace? Yes. Our experience might give hope to someone else. I want someone who is struggling to know that they shouldn't give up and should keep moving forward. Mike smiled gently. That's a wonderful idea. I'm sure you can write a story that will touch people's hearts. I was encouraged by his words. My heart leaped at the possibility that my experience might give hope to others. A few months later, I began writing every night after the children had gone to bed. I sat at my computer and wrote my story. It was sometimes difficult to confront painful memories, but I didn't give up. I believed that my experience could empower someone else. And on the day I finally finished the manuscript, I felt a great sense of accomplishment. It's done, I told Mike. Mike hugged me. Congratulations, Grace. You're truly amazing. My book was published by a small publishing house. The title was Seeds of Hope. It was a story of my life's journey and my path to finding new happiness. The book gradually gained traction and reached the hearts of many people. I started receiving letters from readers. One day, a particular letter touched my heart deeply. Dear Grace, reading your book gave me courage. I've also been struggling with infertility and felt despair. But after reading your story, I was able to find hope. Now I'm actively pursuing treatment. Whatever the outcome, I believe that I can find a happy life. Thank you. Reading this letter, I couldn't stop my tears. I felt profound joy, knowing that my experience had become someone else's hope. That night, I felt a quiet happiness as I had dinner with my family. Emma and Noah chatted happily, and Mike watched over them with a gentle gaze. I deeply appreciated how precious this moment was. I remembered the pain I had once felt and realized that it was because of that experience that I could savor my current happiness even more deeply. Life always brings unexpected turns, but maybe that's what makes life beautiful. I smiled at my family. I love you all, I said. We love you too, Mommy, Emma and Noah said in unison, and Mike smiled back tenderly at this moment. I was truly happy, and although there would be many more challenges ahead, I was confident that I could overcome them with my beloved family by my side. My story doesn't end here. It's just beginning. New joys and new trials might await me, but I was no longer afraid, because I believed that every moment in life was an opportunity for growth, and I would continue to sow seeds of hope, hoping that through my experience, I could give courage to someone else. My story is not over. It's just beginning.